the COVID-like illness, is the fact that it's based on the doctor's opinion as to whether or not you have COVID-like symptoms and whether or not they report that information to the proper data collecting company or whatever it is. So it's a giant game. That's all that it is. It's a giant game designed to keep our scores a bit lower than they actually are. Did you know that? I bet you didn't know that. Anyway, so we're back. Let me ask you guys your opinion. Were you told why we went fully virtual? I'm not certain. I know that a department was exposed. Did they tell you what department? I have no idea. I'm not going to confirm or deny. It wasn't the math department. I saw a Facebook post on a parent's Facebook group. I saw a Facebook post on a Facebook group that a parent said, well, I heard that 5 or 6 math teachers were out. Yeah, we were. It wasn't because of COVID. But anyway, what were you going to say, Anthony? I have no idea. Nope. I don't know, because you guys hear more rumors than I do. No, I'm not going to believe the rumors. I just want to hear them. Whenever it comes to the idea of a rumor, I mean, there is some shred of truth to it. I mean, it's not 100% wrong. It's just skewed in a certain way in order to get people to believe something. I don't know. But anyway, let's start with this. What I want to do to get this thing kind of going is give you this. Now, I have a PDF that I'm going to put into the Google Stream in a little bit for those that are watching virtually. But first, I want to pass this out. Oh, it's over here. Here, pass that over. I'll tell you what this is in a moment. Obviously, you can probably figure it out just by looking at the paper. Whoa. A lot of numbers, a lot of words. Yes, it is a lot of numbers and a lot of words, but you can figure out what it is. You can figure out exactly what it is. It's a what? League settings. Yeah. Be a little bit more specific. Yeah. League settings, scoring. Ah, scoring. Yes. Now, for those of you that are in the chat, I'm going to upload this into the stream in a moment. Let's see here. Google Drive. Recent league settings. And I'm going to post that there. PDF for today. There we go. Okay. Now, just for the sake of argument, again, you are going to see what it's like to calculate your weekly score. You're going to find out what it's like to calculate your weekly score based on an imaginary team that we are going to come up with. Now, when I say imaginary team, I mean that they're actually going to be real players, but no team in our league actually has the players, all the players that we're going to come up with. We're going to come up with it a position at a time. In our fantasy football league, obviously you have to start a quarterback. Duplicate this. Should switch over to my actual thing here. And I'll go to my team for the sake of argument. Here we go. You have to have, at minimum, 1 quarterback starting. You have to have 2 running backs. You have to have 2 wide receivers. You have to have 1 tight end. You have to have a flex player, which in this league you are not allowed to start an additional quarterback. It has to be an offensive player of some sort. You have to have a defense, special teams, and you have to have a kicker. I'll tell you a story. So I'm in a league right now with my brother-in-law. I've been in this league with these same guys for 14 years. I know. Yeah, multiple times. 14 years in this league. And it's a pretty big league, too. There's 14 teams in the league as well. It's a pretty tight league. And the thing about this league, it's 14 teams, but on your flex, the guy said it a long time ago, and he stuck to it. You're allowed to start a second quarterback. Yeah. In a 14-team league, you can start 2 quarterbacks. Well, that's part of the story. I started the season with Patrick Mahomes, but my second quarterback was Daniel Jones. Not in the beginning of the season. Not in the beginning of the season. Beginning of the season, he sucked. I couldn't start him. Could not start the guy. And I knew that eventually I had to push for a playoff run. So I had to think long term. So I ended up trading Patrick Mahomes to get Tannehill and Cousins. It may not have seemed like the best decision at the time. But now I am in the quarterfinals. The quarterfinals are about to wrap up in my fantasy league, quarterfinals. And I'm facing the guy that I traded Mahomes to. Mahomes didn't really do too great yesterday. Tannehill and Cousins did. Not only that, I also have the Chiefs kicker who got most of their points yesterday. Y'all see that Chiefs game? Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Dude kicked like 5 field goals. I'm going to win my quarterfinal game. I'm in the final 4 of that league now because I made that decision. Now, obviously, the 2 that I traded for are not the best, but you have to think long term. Patrick Mahomes, yes, he's great, but he's not going to be great every single week. You always have to have a backup plan. You do. Now, based on the team here, which, by the way, James Conner, I don't have a backup plan for James Conner. Dude's out with COVID right now, right? It really does. I know. Thankfully, this wasn't our playoffs, you know. But anyway, we are going to construct a team. So just for the sake of argument, let's kind of go through it one at a time. Who do you believe right now is the most fantasy point productive quarterback in the league? Opinion. Who is the best quarterback in the league? Opinion. Who? Kyler Murray. Patrick Mahomes? These are good choices. Any other nominees? Clearly not taken seriously. With or without the mustache? No, I'm going to go with the 3 right there. So just for the sake of argument, just a quick show of hands real quick. You got Mahomes, Murray, and Rodgers. How many people would say Mahomes? Not that many. Murray? Rodgers? Way more people for Rodgers. That's our quarterback. So we are going to pick Aaron Rodgers. So now, hold on. Where's my little remote thing to mute this off? There we go. Cool. We are going to pick Rodgers for this. I don't know how to spell Rodgers. Is there an extra G in there? Whatever. I don't care. Running back. Name. And I had a couple running backs. Name best running backs in the league today. Oh, I heard Derrick Henry. McCaffrey. McCaffrey's been injured all season, though, right? Cook? Jones, Kamara. I definitely agree Derrick Henry. I'm pretty sure. Can we all agree just Derrick Henry automatically? Yeah, but we have to have a second running back. Yeah, I hear more Dalvin Cooks. Okay. So we got Henry. We got Cook. Clearly, no one person has this team, but let's see what happens. Wide receivers. I need 2 of them. I'm hearing multiple Devontae Adams. Wait, hold on a second. Let me write down Adams because I heard multiple. I heard like 3 or 4 people say Adams. I heard Metcalf over here as well. Julio Jones. All right. How do you spell Metcalf? KLF? Cool. Tight end. It has to be Kelsey. Like I don't see how you can't have Kelsey on there. You know? Has to be Kelsey. Now, flex is a little weird. We're going to come back to flex in a moment. You see that catch yesterday? Y'all see that Chiefs catch in the end zone that wasn't a catch? That was ridiculous. How do you not challenge that? Even if they challenge it, still, he had control. Just saying. Anyway, we'll come back. Defense, special teams. Shut up. Kicker. Who is he? Blankenship. What? Wait, what is his name on the Falcons though? Blankenship's on the Colts, right? I don't know.
Yeah, his last name's
Coo? Like COO? I'm gonna look it up. So let me just look up kickers real quick, and then we'll kind of see what's going on there. So players. Oh, yeah, it's got players. Players. I'm gonna do all. We'll go kickers. Oh, there he is. KOO. Well, let me go over here real quick. Average fantasy points. Hey, look at that. Those are average fantasy points for the kickers in the league this year. Cool. Oh, he's down here. Yeah, they haven't scored as much. All right, I'm just looking at what they've done so far. Anyway, all right. So, wait, I put Koo in the wrong spot. So now we have to have a flex player. I'm just going to, instead of actually trying, I know you keep saying Hill, but let me just do this instead. Let me go to flex. And average, I want to do average. Let's do total. Total. It has Kamara up there. It has Hill up there. Hey, look, we actually did pretty good. Look at this. Cook, Adams, Kelsey, Henry. This is just flex people for the interior. We did pretty good with those. I'm going to put Kamara up here just for the sake of argument. Kamara. Okay. What week are we in for the NFL? Week 13. Here's what I want to do. I want to pick a random week. And depending on the week that we pick out of week 13, we are going to have an opportunity to do some research on these players. I'm going to split them up throughout the classroom, and we are going to have an opportunity to try and figure out what our fantasy score would be. Now, just for the sake of argument, bring this here. Let me seed the calculator. You guys don't, some of you may know what I'm doing, but it doesn't matter. I'm going to go random int 1,13. Good question. Now, in fantasy, obviously there are certain times that you can't account for the player being out. And there are certain times when you can't account for the player being on a bye week. You know what I'm saying? Now, obviously you do have a bench to fill that. You know what I'm saying? Just for the sake of argument, when did bye weeks begin? Is that week 4 or 5? Week 4? And so maybe we shouldn't do random 113. Maybe we should just do 1 to 3 so everyone would be playing. For the most part. I mean, unless they had like a really bad game. So, let me Google that. Bye week start 2020 NFL. Oh, they started week 5. There we go. So we'll do 1 to 4 then. Still seated the calculator. I'll do 1 to 4. Chapow! We're doing week 1. So here's what I want you to do. I'm going to split this lineup up. And we're going to have an opportunity to look up what these players did week in and week out. I want you to be able to write this stuff directly on the paper that you have in front of you. And we are going to figure out exactly how many points they generated in fantasy for that week. Now, obviously, it's a matter of like, I could easily just look it up. Yeah, of course you could look it up. But I want the data to back it up. For example, if you get a quarterback, you need to know passing yards. You need to know touchdown passes. You need to know interceptions thrown. You need to know 2-point conversions, things of that nature. Rushing, this is the scoring for our league. This is how our league scores, just so you know. Now, for the sake of argument, you see passing yards. What's the number associated with passing yards? What does that mean? Per yard. Yeah. If the guy has 1 passing yard, then he gets 0.04. He gets 4 fantasy points per touchdown, -2 for an interception, 2 for a 2-point conversion. It has to be a passing conversion, of course. This is what we're going to look up. So what I'm going to say is this. I'm going to split you guys up. Obviously, we can't get together into little groups. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5-ish things. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I'm going to split them up here. Split them up here. And, oh, what's he doing? Oh, the players. All right, I got you. That was weird. He was just holding it up. That was just weird. Anyway, cool. So I'm going to split you guys into thirds. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. I got 16 of you. I got 9 players. Yeah, I can do 5, 5, and 6. Cool. So just for the sake of it, I'm going to split you guys up with players first. So, whoa, no, it's falling. Cool. So you first 5 are here. You 3 and you 2 in the front right here. You got the top group. You guys got the top group. Then the next 5, you 2, and the first 3 here, you guys got the middle group. The remaining 6 of you, you have the last group. Now, what I'm going to say is this. I want you to calculate the fantasy scores for the players that I gave you. I want you to write down. Now, mind you, you're only looking at week 1 of the NFL season. You're only looking at week 1 of the NFL season. And you are going to be writing down their statistics. For example, for Aaron Rodgers, I need to know how many passing yards did he have? How many touchdowns did he have? How many interceptions did he have? Things of that nature. Now, there's one thing that I do have to bring your attention to. Flip the paper over to the back. On the back, there's miscellaneous. They do lose 2 points for a fumble lost. They do have certain points for extra little things here and there. A kickoff return touchdown, a punt return touchdown. That would be special teams. Keep that in mind. An interception return touchdown, that would be defense. Little things to look into. I don't want to see how close we can potentially get. So, as you're doing these calculations, as you're looking up this data, confirm with the people in your little group to make sure that you're doing these calculations correctly. Again, that first group, you got Rodgers, Henry, and Cook. The middle group, you got Adams, Metcalf, and Kelsey. The last group, you got Kamara, the Steelers defense, and Koo. Let's go. Let me write you a pass. I want to actually compare this team against our week 1 scores and see if this team could have beat any of us. Just because you got the best players in the league does not necessarily equate fantasy points. Yes, week 1. Just week 1 of this NFL season. Don't be mean about it. That's all right over there.
There's no way it is. Creamiest contagious.
Sounds accurate.
Creamiest contagious.
You ready for this? Decalin Zacharias.
No way.
I'm not even kidding you. Decalin, hold on. It's Decalin
Who's naming their kid that?
Zacharias. Yeah, that's what it says on Wikipedia. Oh, that's funny. So after an ESPN announcer mistakenly called him Decaf Metcalf, he partnered with Volcania Coffee, and beginning in December of last year, 16-ounce bags of coffee labeled Decaf Metcalf began selling on the company's website. And part of the proceeds from the coffee sales will be donated to Prison Fellowship, an organization that Metcalf has a long-standing relationship with. Yeah. Yeah, hold on one second. Fill this out real quick. That's good. Email. Okay, you put 20. I thought you put 10. I thought you put 2010. I was confused for a second. Oh no, he threw a piece of paper. All right. Let me get some information from you guys because I know you're not done yet, but let me get some preliminary information from you guys. I'm gonna write down. So for Aaron Rodgers in week 1, how many passing yards did he have, group over there? He had 364 yards. How many touchdowns? 4 TDs. Interceptions? Okay. Did he have any 2-point conversions? Okay. What about fumbles? Okay. For a quarterback, is there any other information that would allow him to score fantasy points? Ah. Wait, someone said 2? So you say one rushing yard. 1 rush for 2 yards. Okay. So 2 yards rushing. Nothing else? Cool. All right. Look up that in a moment. I'll come back to you guys. Middle group, did you find stuff about Adams?
14 receptions, 156 yards.
Whoa. Hold on. Hold up a second. See, being in a PPR league, I like that. You get points per reception because reception is a big deal. So let's start with this. How many yards did he get as a receiver? 156 yards receiving. How many receptions? 14 receptions. He scored any touchdowns? 2 TDs. Our team is looking stacked this week. Oh, it froze. Again, we just picked this team. No one has this team. It would be pretty solid. No 2-point conversions. He didn't rush the ball at all. Okay, fumbles. All right. Third group, tell me something about Kamara. Where's a Kamara? How many? 16 rushing yards. So 16 rush yards. What else?
Wow, that's a malfunction.
51 receiving yards. 5 receptions. 2 touchdowns? Good for him. Now, is there a difference between a receiving touchdown or a rushing touchdown, or is it still 6? Okay. No fumbles? Nice. Our team is looking pretty good so far. Our team sucks. Okay, so let me figure out these numbers for Rodgers, Adams, and Kamara. Then I'm going to come back to the rest of the groups one at a time to figure out the rest of them. So according to this, as we talked about, 364 yards passing, 0.04 per yard, plus 4 points for every touchdown pass thrown. And he had 2 rushing yards, which we're going to count. It's a 2 times 0.1. Have you guys ever played in fantasy leagues where you don't get credit for a fantasy point unless they break like 10 yards or 25 yards? Those are pretty rough leagues. So it's like I had one guy who had like 2 receptions for 9 yards. And because of that, 0 points. Yeah. Oh, move it up or over? Over. All right, calculating. Did you guys get 30.76? Cool. So Rodgers had 30.76 fantasy points. Pretty solid start so far. It is solid. Pretty good start to our season. Man, Aaron Rodgers, man, he's only won 1 Super Bowl, right? That's a shame. Whatever. Davante Adams, wide receiver. He gets 0.1 per receiving yard. 14 receptions. You get a point for each one and 2 touchdowns. How many points did you guys get for Davante Adams, that middle group? 1 million? 41.6. Again, the team is sick. Have you ever played in a league where they've gone 2 decimal points before? I like it. Less chance of a tie. Much less chance of a tie. I've been in leagues where they've had ties before. They're painful. Very painful. Kamara! Now, this one's going to be a little weird. 16 rushing yards. Camera? 51 reception yards, 5 receptions, and 2 touchdowns. What'd you guys get for Kamara? Fantasy points.
23.7.
I got 23.7. Okay. Team's looking pretty solid so far. Let's go back to Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry, Tennessee Titans. Is he going to be the MVP this year? I'm saying, if you ever watch Gridiron Heights, they had a really great MVP chase episode the other week. Does no one watch Gridiron Heights?
Nope.
You really should.
I'm watching my team on Instagram.
It's pretty funny. Just saying. Anyway, Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry, running back. How many rushing yards did he have? 116 rushing yards. That's not bad. Touchdowns? Really? What did the Titans do week 1? Did they lose?
They beat Denver 16-14.
It's a pretty close game. Did he have any receiving yards? 3 receptions for 3 yards. And no receiving touchdowns, no fumbles? Man, Derrick Henry, a little disappointing, I got to say. It was week 1. So how many points did Derrick Henry have? 14.9. Okay. Metcalf. Decarius Metcalf. There he is. How many receiving yards did he have? 95 receiving yards. That's not bad. Wait. He had 4 catches? 4 receptions and 95 yards. It's not bad. And 1 touchdown. Any rushing yards? No rushing yards, no fumbles? Cool. Let's figure that out. 95 times 0.1. How many points you guys get for Metcalf? 19.5 points for Metcalf. All right, let's look at the Steelers D. Now, this one's going to be a little trickier. Just for the sake of argument, I'm going to be talking to the group that did the Steelers, obviously, but I want the rest of you to turn that paper, or not turn that paper, but look down at team defense special teams. Look down at team defense special teams. It extends onto the back. That thing is pretty messed up in terms of the number of points you can get. So, one at a time, I'm going to ask about the Steelers. Did the Steelers special team have any kickoff or punt or intercept returns or fumble returns for a touchdown? They had none. Okay, so no returns. No TD returns. Hold on. They didn't block a punt or a field goal? All right, 2-point return, 1 point safe. No safeties? How many sacks?
3.
They had 3 sacks. No block punt, PAT field goal. Any interceptions? 2 interceptions. Safeties. Fumble recoveries. Points allowed. Okay, they had 16 points allowed. We'll calculate that in a moment. Points allowed. 291 yards allowed. And that should be it, right? No kickoff, punt return, fumble return, blah, 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 blah. Okay, yeah. All right, so let me figure out what I got, and then I'm going to ask you guys what you got. Let's see. Interceptions, points allowed, yards allowed. What'd you guys get for defense? Yeah, I got 10 as well. I love it when my defense, and this has happened multiple times with my Ravens, but, I've had a defense that have outscored most of the players on the team. Pretty messed up. All right. Dalvin Cook. Give me some information on Cook. Okay. Week 1, how many yards did he get? 50? Rushing, right? What about any receiving yards? Are you for real?
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay.
For one catch. That counts.
Yeah. And then 2 touchdowns.
Okay. Two TDs. No fumbles? Okay, so hold on. We got to figure this out. Those receiving yards are going to count against them. 50 times 0.1 plus that plus receiving yards would be -2. What'd you guys get? I got 17.8 as well.
Perfect.
Nice. All right. Kelsey. How many yards did Kelsey have? Say again? He had 50 as well? Receptions? 6 receptions, TDs? 1 TD. Dude, tight ends usually don't rush the ball, right? Yeah, I didn't think so. No fumbles, not anything like that? Cool. 50 times that, plus that, plus that. What'd you guys get for a Kelsey? 30. They got 17 as well. You got 40. Oh, goodness gracious. Finally, the kicker. Coup. Now, in terms of kicking, obviously there's a very specific category. First of all, did he make any extra points?
Yes, 1 of 2.
He was 1 of 2 for extra points. So PAT, point after touchdown. Now, field goals made versus missed. First of all, tell me, did he miss any field goals? No missed field goals. And how many did he make?
2.
He made 2 field goals, but at what distance?
40 to 49.
40 and 4. Oh, made both of them in that range.
Yeah.
Okay, so 2 field goals, 40 to 49 yards. Okay, so each PAT made. Now, here's the interesting thing. If you guys look at kicking, look at the kicking category. Is there any indication of losing points for missing an extra point?
No.
Isn't that weird? Doesn't that seem like if you miss the extra point, you should suffer? That seems like an oversight to me. All right. But he only made 1. And those 2 field goals in that range, what'd you guys get for Coup? 9? Because he made 2 in that range, so that would be 8. And then, 9. All right, so our fantasy team. The numbers that I underlined here are going to be our fantasy team. Let's total this up. Boom! Our fantasy team had 184.26 points. 184. What did we get in week 1? Anybody from our league? Let's go to week 1. Hold on. Week 1, the high score in our league in week 1 was 148. Yeah. Pretty solid. They had. Did you guys have anyone from our team? It was. Oh, they're 7-5. Anyway, but yeah, that's pretty solid. Now here's the thing. Question: how tedious is it to do that? It's pretty tedious. This is how they had to do it back in the day. How long has fantasy football been a thing? I get a video for you to watch. Come fill this out while I set this up. Yeah, I got a video for you guys to watch here. Not that one. I got to go to I saved it in a playlist. Here we go. Playlist. Math of sports.
For a lot of us, fantasy football has always looked like this, but it actually began way back in 1962. How it evolved is really fun, but it also shows that compared to what we have now, playing fantasy football used to be kind of a pain. We're in a golden age of fantasy football. With NFL Fantasy Football, you can watch instant video highlights, access free live scoring, and create custom leagues. The game is so popular that if all North American fantasy players founded a country, it'd be the 24th largest in the world, which makes it weird to think. It wasn't always like this. Fantasy football was created before the personal computer, even before the modern NFL itself, by a group of people in need of an outlet. They were fans of the 1962 Oakland Raiders. That year, Oakland went 1-13 and set an AFL record for lowest winning percentage, and it was during a dismal 3-game East Coast swing that fantasy became reality. Bill Wink Winkenbach, a part owner who had previously created fantasy golf, huddled with 2 other long-suffering Raiders fans in a Manhattan hotel room and sketched out a system of rules. It was the nucleus of the, say it with me, Greater Oakland Professional Pigskin Prognosticators League, or GOPPPL, the first fantasy league in history. It met in Wink's rumpus room. The GOPPPL charter has survived, and a lot of it actually looks pretty familiar. There are weekly head-to-head games, a snake draft, and even institutionalized trash talk involving a Dunce trophy. And already there were fantasy busts. Quarterback George Blanda, usually a solid pick, went first in the first draft over Jim Brown. But you can also see how the GOPPPL differs from the modern game. Passing didn't count as much, the AFL was pass happy, and only touchdowns really mattered, not yardage. You can also see just how much work fantasy was, especially compared to today when you can optimize your team in a click. Players then had to submit rosters by Friday at noon to a league secretary. Yeah, there was a secretary who had to keep track of rosters and scores. And because the GOPPPL only took players who had some stake in the Raiders franchise, the game didn't spread until Andy Musolimas took over. He was the guy that picked George Blanda in the first round. In the late 1960s, Andy bought King's X Pub, where he formed the first public fantasy league. The stories are pretty wild. People would pack the bar every Friday night to post their lineups before the 9 p.m. deadline. Andy's 2 big innovations. Yardage finally counted towards scores, and he invited women to play in 1974. Again, it was hard. Local outlets didn't carry scores from across the league, so Andy would call papers in other cities and beg them for results. They thought he was a bookie. And there was so little info out there that at least once a player that had unexpectedly passed away ended up being drafted. From then on, the game slowly drifted across the country. In 1984, a pair of friends self-published a book that explained how to run a league. In 1988, you could buy computer programs that kept track of your league. For only $69.95. But it wasn't until free fantasy leagues popped up online that the game broke through, although there was at least a little assist from the greatest show on turf. From then on, fantasy's popularity has grown exponentially and even been embraced by the official game. So the next time you look up player stats in seconds, substitute your running back a minute before kickoff because you have a hunch, or even just join a league from your couch, remember the pioneers that came before you, the pioneers of Oakland. And be thankful for this, the golden age of fantasy football.
We are sure that you're aware of famous cities everywhere. The ones that are...
I just thought that was really interesting. I personally had never known that fantasy football became a thing in 1962. Like, I never knew that. I first joined like random fantasy leagues back in the early 2000s when I was in college, and I actually had a computer ready to go almost every single day. I grew up in an era where my family did not even get the internet until 1999. Just insane, just to think about that, 8th or 9th grade. So, here's what we're going to do. We are going to be beginning a project in regards to our fantasy teams. Now, I posted the other day the beginnings of said project, which I'm going to bring up on the board right now, and I'm going to explain so that we are all on the same page. So bring this up here. Now, this is only part 1 of the project. There are more parts to come. So, here are the instructions for the first part. Attached, this is a spreadsheet that you will complete with your fantasy partner. Now, the spreadsheet that I'm going to show you in a little bit, each student is receiving a copy of it. You're going to change the title of that, the copy that you have, to one of you are going to change it to like your team name, for example. So like, Hair DeSanto, you would change it to fantasy projected versus actual Hair DeSanto. And then that would be shared with me once complete. Now, what's going to happen is there's an explanation for filling out the spreadsheet in a short video that I made at the following link. Now, I'm going to talk about it a little bit now, but of course, you can always go back and watch that video if you need clarification. This first part will be due Wednesday by 2 p.m. You can split the work with your partner. Now, obviously, I know some of you, unfortunately, don't have partners anymore, but we're going to have to work with that. But I don't know. I've checked. Now, well, to be fair, you haven't seen anybody in 2 weeks. Yeah. Anyway, this will be due Wednesday by 2 p.m. This should not take much time. In reality, like I was able to fill out my entire team probably in no more than 15 or so minutes. But again, that's me. I know where to look. But I'm going to walk you through a little bit of that right now. Of course, just for reference, just for my own reference, here are the fantasy team pairings that we did in the beginning. And then, of course, the spreadsheet. Now, there is a spreadsheet that I've done that you can create or you get a fresh copy of that you can put this information in. I'm going to show you where to find it. Now, obviously, for each week, you're going to know what your actual results are. Now, week 13 is still being played at the moment, but week 13 should be done by, well, Tuesday night, and then everything should be updated by Wednesday morning. Anyway, the result that I'm looking for is either a win or a loss, and then you're going to put your win-loss record over here, projected versus actual. Now, let me walk you through kind of a week of my team, for example. If I go to my team, scroll over here. Come on, you. If I go to my team and click on full schedule, if you click on full schedule, you get a listing of every game that you've played over the course of this season. Now, I'm going to right-click the score for week 1. This is all in the video. Open that up, and it takes me to the box score for my week 1 matchup, which you can clearly see that I won. Good for me. But what I'm more interested in are the numbers over here. Now, here's my team to the right. And on the right, I have my projected totals. Each of you are going to have that. My projected total is 120.5. The actual total was 121.4. That wasn't too far off. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put those numbers into the spreadsheet. 120.5 in for projected, 121.4 in for actual, in for week 1. And I am going to do a brief analysis. It doesn't have to be very in-depth. It can be very subjective. But a brief analysis as to, well, who on my team overperformed and who on my team underperformed. So, for example, just by looking at my players that projected versus actual, can you pretty much guess who I'm going to pick for who overperformed? Who overperformed on my list? Yeah, Thielen totally overperformed. Good for him. So I would put Adam Thielen under overperformed. And I would have, his projected versus his actual. Clearly the dude overperformed. That's all I put. Underperformed. Connor definitely underperformed. I mean, other players did. Other players did as well. But Connor definitely did, clearly. That's a clear underperformance right there. Stupid James Conner. Getting COVID. Anyway, but I would put that in, and I'd put in as projected versus actual. So then after I finish week 1, which that shouldn't take me that much time at all, goodbye week 1, I go to week 2. Open up in a new tab. There it is right there at the under my team on the left, because that was the team on the left. We were projected at 119. We actually scored 110.26. All right, now I didn't actually do week 2, so I'm just going to do, okay, who overperformed? Man, who would I go with? I have a few choices here. I could say James Conner overperformed, Could say the Ravens defense overperformed. I could say Justin Tucker overperformed. You pick. You pick one of them. If you have any questions, make sure you are emailing me. That clock feels off, but whatever.